What's up, guys? Ryan Mahoney here with Goosehead Insurance. So this is a special episode of Flying with the Flock. So one of our franchise sales guys reached out, Hawkins Cornwell, to me about a month or two ago, and with a podcast idea, and which obviously I love. So we decided to roll it into Flying with the Flock, and this is our first episode. But basically, we wanted to highlight and interview some of the folks at Goosehead, and basically share kind of their experience, the Goosehead model. So Hawkins joined Goosehead about 5 months ago, and like I said, he's on the franchise sales team. So he is dialing and prospecting folks to open up a Goosehead agency. So he's going to be joining me on these interviews moving forward. So this first one is a good friend of mine out of California, Joe Gilmartin, wonderful guy. I think one of the things I admire most about Joe, and you'll hear it in here, is that he opened up his Goosehead agency at a young age of 50 and started over, and he crushes it. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Don't forget, send me a text, 704-285-0992. Again, text me, say hello, 704-285-0992. So hope you guys enjoy this one, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, what's up, guys? My name's Ryan Mahoney with Goosehead Insurance. I'm with Hawkins Cornwell in our franchise sales department, and we have Joe Gilmartin on today, who is a agency owner out of California. Joe, I'll take a minute to give you my relationship with Joe, but Joe was one of the first folks to reach out and help us out when we came on almost 3.5 years ago. And he's been a big help to me and Blake, and we have a really good relationship with him. And I know he helps a lot of folks in Goosehead here. So thank you, Joe. You're our first guest, man. And
hey, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
We couldn't have a better person. So
appreciate it.
Why don't you give us a little bit of your rundown, where you started your career, I believe, back in Allstate, and kind of what led you to the opening up your Goosehead agency there in California.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be more than happy to do that. So I was with Allstate for close to 30 years as an agency owner. And, California presented some unique challenges out here in the state where we couldn't even write homeowner policies on Allstate paper for close to 10 years. Our auto rates were super uncompetitive. What I wound up being at Allstate was a glorified customer service rep and selling life insurance, which is not why I got into this business. So in 2014, I made a decision to move on from Allstate and sell the agency, which I was grateful that I was able to do. And I got to tell you, man, the time I spent with them was invaluable. It was great. I don't knock Allstate at all to this day. They were a good company. They gave me a great income, took some great trips, and made some amazing friends over the years. But I left I left Allstate, and I was going to get out of the insurance business completely. I was just done. 30 years. I was like, okay, let's do something different. And Jordan Johnson, one of the franchise recruiters, reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in meeting with her. And absolutely, I said, all right, I've got nothing going on, 6 months in, I'll check it out. Everything kept leading me back to insurance. I couldn't get away from it. I heard what she had to say. She invited me down to Texas for a discovery day, and I fell in love with it. I was like, I want to sign the contract. And on the way home, the next day, on the way home that night, I said, you know what, I'm going to sign. Next day, I signed the contract. And I got to be honest, man, I've never looked back once. It's been the best decision that I've ever made. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this organization.
When was that again?
That was 2015 is actually when I started with Goosehead, March 2015.
Okay. How many states did Goosehead have at that time?
Oh, boy, I don't think many. I know we were in Texas, Florida, just coming into California. I think I was the 8th or 9th agent hired in California. So we were probably in maybe 5 or 6 states at that time, if that.
Yeah.
It was really, really small.
What's your experience been like, Joe, from the beginning to where you are now, man, 5 years later?
Yeah, I tell you, man, it's been a journey. It's been a lot of fun. What struck me about this company from the initial get-go was the culture, right, and the people. I think you and I have talked about that, Ryan, many times. It's different than any other place that I've worked at. Even most of it was at Allstate, but even from what I've seen with other people and how they talk about their company. I mean, it trickles down from leadership down to middle management, right down to the corporate agents and the other agency owners helping other agency owners. I mean, that's what we do. We all share a common goal, and that's to all be successful and continue to grow our agencies, grow the business, grow Goosehead, and have fun with it, man. It's just one of these things where it is not, my stress at Allstate was completely different.
Mm-hmm.
What I have here is there's just not enough time in the day to write business. And stress, right? I love being a part of an organization where
Good stress.
Good stress and being successful at it.
How's your production been? And that's, we hear it, Joe. We talk to a lot of folks, Hawkins, you talk to a lot of folks who are looking to make the switch. A lot of them call us, as far as what you're able to produce here versus maybe Allstate, Joe, what have you seen in your agency, man?
Yeah, and I can't speak for every agent across the country because everybody's going to have differences based on demographics and what the state's looking to do. But I will tell you, in California, which is a difficult market to grow in with any insurance company, we've had tremendous success with Goosehead. When I was at Allstate, I mean, we were closing at a rate of like 16, 17%. And you talk to agents nowadays and they say, that's pretty good. At Goosehead, we're closing at a clip of over 70%. That's really good. So there's a vast difference between the two, right? Being a captive agent and being an agent like a Goosehead agent. We have a lot more opportunities. We certainly do talk about that power of choice a lot, where we have a lot of different carriers that we're able to kind of hone into. And I think in California, we probably have more carriers than any other state besides maybe Texas and Florida. But we have tons of choices, and that's what helps us win. So from a production standpoint, we're doing what I never thought was possible to do. It got to the point where I had to bring on producers because that lead flow volume was too much for me to handle. So fast forward from day one, where we're scrapping, getting out there, hustling constantly on the ground, trying to build that business and ramp up with referral partners, to where we're at 5 years now. It's been a journey and it's been fun, and I'm so pleased with our progress and where we've come. But I'll tell you, man, that first year, if anybody's ever thinking about coming in, it's a grind. You got to work, but you got to follow the model. Goosehead has laid out an incredible roadmap for you to follow, and if you don't follow it, you'll be out of business. I mean, every success that I have seen in Goosehead follows the Goosehead model, and I can't preach that enough. And I tell myself that every day when I talk to new agents. It was the one thing that I really embraced when I came on board. And I say this all the time in these Discovery Day meetings, that if I had done everything else like that in my life, I'd have the body of a Greek god and I'd be a millionaire. But being focused on that marketing piece was like everything. And I dedicated, 12 to 18 months of making that happen.
That's been my experience too, Joe. People ask me if there's, as I look back, if I'd change anything or any suggestions. And I'm like, we followed everything to a T when we came back. We opened up the Carolinas, so we had, an open state to market to, and we hit the ground running and did the same thing, And the other thing I think you touched on, Joe, is that what I found fascinating over at Goosehead is that you truly build the business first and then start to scale it. So I know when I was with State Farm, it was like, how many people are you going to hire? How many service? How many sales? Like right out the gate, right?
Yeah.
And it's even on a small level, you almost feel like you're building the business backwards, right? You're going out and hiring it, and then trying to like funnel leads or in the business in where I think it's important to note we're in a model where, and you've done this, you've shown patience over the 3-4 years before you brought Kai on board, where you ran it to a point where you just said you got to enough lead flow coming in that you could hire that person. So I think that's it's just a better
Yeah,
business practice.
I agree 100% with that, Ryan. There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's like the models that are out there, they just don't make sense, right? It's like you're winding up going into debt, bringing on people, and you really can't sustain that because you don't have the lead flow. Goosehead's model is basically come on board, keep your expenses low, do your marketing efforts. As far as an office, get a smaller office and kind of build from there, right? It's like in time, you can always add to it. And that's exactly the philosophy that I took. I kept my overhead low. I wanted to learn the business because coming from a captive model, there was that learning curve, right? It's like you have to understand the different carriers, instead of dealing with 1 or 2 different companies, now you're dealing with 30 to 45 different companies that you got to understand. And you don't have to be a master at every single one of them, but there is definitely that ramp up period. So I wanted to embrace the business and get to know it myself because I wanted to be the captain of my ship. I wanted to understand where to go and how to do things and what makes things work. Because if I can't be a good boss to my producers, then I'm not going to be able to run a successful agency.
Right. Hawkins, what do you hear out there when you're talking to people? There's got to be a reoccurring like 2 or 3 kind of objections to your conversation around Goosehead and all that. What is that, man? Joe, I bet can help answer some of these questions.
Yeah, I think number one, one of the biggest struggles that we have in North Carolina, really, I think in kind of what we're asking these guys to do is making that leap, trusting, taking that bet on themselves. I just kind of wanted to ask you, Joe, what really made you want to take the leap to where it was like, let's do this?
Yeah, that's a great question because it was a really tough decision for me because I was 50 years old at the time and I had a daughter that was just starting college and it just didn't seem like the most practical thing to do. But it was one of those things where you have to kind of come to terms in your life with what makes you happy. And honestly, it was every day was the same mundane, boring type of environment that I was in. And we weren't writing business. So for me, it wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't having a good time. And I saw an opportunity that presented itself where I knew it was going to take a little bit of time. I knew it was going to have to rebuild. And I knew there was a degree of risk, but I was willing to do it to trade in for my happiness. And honestly, I feel like somebody used this phrase one time when I was describing it to them. They said, "You sound like a reborn agent." And I got to be honest, that's exactly what I am. I was a very average agent at Allstate. I just did my thing, kept off the radar. But I tell you what, coming over to Goosehead, I just feel invigorated. I feel alive. I love what I do. But I circle all that back to the culture. And the culture within the organization kind of creates that synergy and that energy that we have where everybody wants to be part of the team. Everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to help one another out. So it was definitely a tough decision for me to do. But looking back, I'm so grateful that I took that chance. Because if you stay where you're at and you continue to be miserable, it affects every aspect of your life. And that's what it's doing to me.
Joe, I know this is true for me. So when I was kind of beating my head against the wall because of rates, because of people leaving, you only have one option, right?
Yep.
And that was not my experience with State Farm in Florida. We absolutely crushed it on the auto side. We were winning. What I didn't figure out until maybe, I don't know if it was 6 months or even that first year of being open at Goosehead, is that I forgot what it felt like to win and how awesome feeling that is.
Yeah.
So I tell everyone the same thing. I'm like, what's the difference? It's like, well, if you forgot what it's like to win and how good that makes you feel, like you need to come over here or you need to make some sort of change, right? But I couldn't, it was one of those things where I couldn't tell you like, oh, I'm going to go over there. We knew we were going to win, right? But it's the feeling that was so pushed down that I think like reinvigorates me again, as you said, as like a reborn agent, where you're like, man, this is fun. I'm happy. We're winning.
No, absolutely. And when you're in an environment where the company makes changes on a large scale and it prohibits you from writing business, you're basically having a book of business that's bleeding out, and it's hard to replace that business. And when you have a vested interest in the business, you got to look at it and you got to go, I got to cut ties at some point in time, because if I continue to stay this, my book of business value is going to just diminish to virtually nothing. All these years that I've worked so hard in are going to be for what? So you got to come to terms with the fact that maybe it's time to cut ties. Maybe it's time to try something different and move on. And that was kind of a big thing for me. It was scary, but I knew that if I stayed, and looking back now, I hear that values of books at Allstate have gone down even further from when I left in 2014. So I'm grateful, and I know in my heart that I made the right decision coming on board.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. I mean, that just touches to it, Joe. Really appreciate that. I think another big objection that we hear pretty regularly is I've got this multi-billion-dollar ad campaign backing me up. I mean, I've got Ryan, you can speak to this. On the State Farm side, guys say, we're the biggest company out here. What helped you recognize that wasn't necessary for being successful as an agent?
I think it's a pretty simple one for me, is that, and I tell everybody the same thing, is all relationships, man. I do business with people that I know I pay more for because of them. It's not, I ask people this too. I'm like, does the real estate company bear any weight with your decision in making, in choosing a real estate agent, or do you go off of referrals, anything like that? And I think that here's what I have noticed though, is that so people can hide behind, or they I don't know, they hitch their wagon to the big brand of State Farm or Allstate, whatever it is, which they've done, they're amazing at branding. But what also happens is I've noticed people come on board with Goosehead and they have this false sense of security where they automatically think that because they have 30 plus options that business is going to come in. So in my opinion, it doesn't matter what sign is above you when people choose you. It's going to be you and your relationships. What does matter ultimately is the model that's behind you. Because Joe mentioned it too. Like, I wasn't an awful State Farm agent, but I wasn't lighting the world on fire like we are here. But I think that most people will find that there's no truer way of finding that out, that they're doing business with you, than our model, because we have 30 different options. And I guarantee you, Joe's clients call him. If their traveler's policy goes up, they can go to Mercury, or they can go here. They're doing that because of him, not because they want to be with Travelers, or Mercury or Progressive, right?
Yeah, right. I don't think I could have said it any better. I mean, it's 100% relationship. I mean, I could walk into a referral partner shop, and a State Farm agent could come in, a farmer's agent, and it really doesn't matter what brand it is. It's getting that individual to trust and have confidence in you. And that's what it boils down to. It's a business of trust, and you got to earn that trust. It just doesn't come naturally. And like you said about having 30 to 40 carriers, it doesn't matter at all. I mean, you get too many people who think that that's just the answer to everything. Is I've got, all these carriers now, I'm going to be successful. It doesn't happen like that. It's, you've got to go out and you've got to earn that business. You got to work for it. But I do tell you what, once you've earned that business, having those 30, 40 carriers does help a lot.
Yeah. It does. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's just from the simple fact I had a conversation not too long ago. I'm like, the best rates today, the company that has the best rate today may not necessarily be the one in 5 years.
Yep, absolutely. You know, it's funny because I've used that, I'm not an Allstate, I'm not State Farm, I'm not Farmers, I'm not the big brand, right? I'm not AAA, but I'm Goosehead. And it's funny because when people hear Goosehead, it's like, it always kind of like, people are, gooseneck? What did you say it was? So it's a talking point, right? It helps that rapport. I mean, because you're having conversation about what it is, where the name came from. So people are a little bit more curious and they're willing to talk to you. It opens up that engagement with people. So I've used that and I've played it to my advantage every single time I can.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That kind of touches. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I think the only thing I'd add, Hawkins, is like, because me and Blake, launched the Carolinas for Goosehead, and people are like, there was no Goosehead in the Carolinas, and what's funny is that as the Carolinas have scaled out, it doesn't happen so much anymore. But in the beginning, when everybody thought that everyone that came on board was part of our agency. So many ways we like built the brand with me and Blake there, so
You are Goosehead.
And yeah, we are Goosehead. That's what a lot of people thought. So, it's kind of weird. I think brand pulls on both sides. Like, it definitely matters and it's important, but I don't think it ultimately at the end of the day that it's going to help you win business here or there. It's just what you have behind you and the model of that brand, but it's got to be a good, reputable brand.
I agree. I mean, there's always going to be somebody that wants to go with somebody because they've got that name recognition, and that's okay, right? I mean, just like those people who want to shop at Nordstrom.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it is what it is. You can't satisfy everybody, but what's left over, we'll be happy to take.
Yeah.
Yep.
That kind of goes also to my another question that I had kind of, and Joe, you've touched on this a little bit, how's your perspective changed, like looking 10 years down the road, like when you were with Allstate looking 10 years down the road versus with us now looking in your future?
That's a deep question, man, because I'm like getting to the end of my career.
Sure.
Yeah.
55, 10 years from now, I don't know. No, honestly, it's I'm excited. I really am to see what the next 10 years from now brings me. This is a job I can continue to do for a very long time. I don't have to stop. My wife may want me to, and I may have to, but at some point, we'll get down that road. But, this business has no limits. There was an agent in Chicago, John DeVay. He said it best in a video. Goosehead is like a Ferrari. You just get in and go as fast as you want and as hard as you want. So Goosehead gives us the opportunity to really kind of shine and grow. And it's really up to the individual to recognize that and capture it and seize that moment and continue to drive and go hard. So I'm excited about the possibilities, and I look forward to it. I wish this was around 20 years ago, but it is what it is. So, any young guy coming in now, it's what a great opportunity, man. What a golden place to be.
Yeah. I remember talking to Megan Bailey. I said that to her. I was like, damn, Megan, I wish you guys would have found me earlier. And she's like, Ryan, you got to be easy on yourself. This didn't exist any earlier than that. And I was like, all right, that's good. I don't want to be missing out on this, I don't know. That's good stuff, Joe. I think I appreciate it. Hawkins, do we have anything?
You know what I think is important to talk about, and I know you could go back and edit this, but the technology, right?
Yeah.
And how the technology piece has really kind of, the technology with Goosehead has really kind of innovated what we do here. They've integrated our rating system into Salesforce. Salesforce is a powerful CRM that we have. We're light years ahead of anybody in our space. I mean, I remember when I was at Allstate, they were still running some of their programs in DOS. I mean, it was just, it's crazy to think, but what we have now is incredible. I mean, even when I first came out trying to find referral partners to work with, I was on Facebook, I was on LinkedIn, was driving around looking at places. Now with a click of, I can actually go in and search a referral partner tool for loan officers in my area who are doing volume, right? Or maybe I don't want to target the big elephant. Maybe I want to go for the middle of the road. I can find out, you know, who's middle of the road. But that piece of technology has immensely helped our production, our efficiencies, and our growth over time in the last couple of years. And it seems like every time I turn around, they're making more and more changes, and it's all great stuff, man.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I think, Joe, you were definitely here where we can kind of share the story of the walking to school uphill in the snow both ways days, because we had easy links, and then you had to put it into Salesforce and all that. It sounds like we've been here for 40 years. You know, that was
Right.
3.5, 5 years ago. It was like that. So look how fast things change. But I think to Joe's point, what is amazing is that we are intentional about every single thing we do. There's no guessing behind it. You know, we don't have to worry about if we're, you know, another Goosehead agent is working with them and going into the wrong office. We don't have to worry about like building the best relationship with the guy who's doing one deal a month and scratching our head and going, why aren't we getting more? Right.
Right.
You know, I think it was either Gary Delavan or I think it was him. I was having a conversation when they rolled out some piece of technology, and I was just like, you know, there's data for everything, and you guys completely remove the, well, I feel like conversation out of it, right? Because you can't feel like you're writing business. You can't feel like you're capturing, you know, home and auto at a high level. You can't feel like you're getting a lot of leads. You know, you can't feel like you're closing a lot, but not making money because we got the ones who false start, right? So we know what we're writing, and then the ones that fall off.
Right.
So kind of even adjust there. So I just think it's amazing the data that's inside Salesforce that we have it completely removes the feeling out of any of it. So you actually have numbers in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's not just, you know, from a business standpoint, writing business, but managing your business, right? And
Yes.
looking at potential growth and, you know, where some shortfalls are, what you're not doing, what you are doing well. And it's powerful stuff, and it's right at our fingertips. And like I said, it's, you know, I always talk about Goosehead kind of being like this insurance kind of a tech company, because they are so innovative and they are always making changes. And they make those changes with the agents in mind, right? And that's one of the unique things that Goosehead has is the culture is different because you're an insurance agency. You're not working for an insurance company anymore, right? So the mindset's different, you know, because you're not worried about, you know, the bottom line and reinsurance and shareholders, and you got 12,000 agents and you got huge corporations all over the country. Goosehead is an agency who wants to support their agents, and they will do whatever they can if it makes sense to make that happen. So like in California, we have problems with wildfires. So what they do is they're always looking for opportunities to give us to have companies that are available to write in high fire line areas. You know, if you were with a captive agency, forget it. If it didn't fit, it didn't fit. We're not going to help you. That's what it is. Go through the California Fair Plan, which is a state-run insurance agency. So I love being a part of this place, man. It's just, they're always doing for you, always helping out. You know, and I always tell everybody, like, oh, sounds like a perfect company. Well, there's no such thing as a perfect company, but I got to tell you, it's the damn closest thing to it.
That's right.
You know, there's little one-offs and stuff and nuances and stuff, but it's like, that's to be expected. But there's nothing that I've ever experienced that I'm willing to die on the cross for, or a change that I accepted and embraced. It's just, it is what it is. It's just business.
Yeah. I'd even add one more thing to our, like, I had a hard time even getting, like, we have a projected renewal report, right? Is it spot on? No, because of the way business fluctuates, if rates go up or down. But I'll tell you, I didn't have that before. And from a running the business standpoint, what you mentioned, Joe, it's extremely helpful to Blake and I, because you can see the patterns, you can see your high and low months, and you can plan accordingly, and even budget and hire and start to scale according to what you have in there too. So yeah, it is more than just the carriers and stuff too. So
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. I love it. I think this is a great interview, Joe.
I appreciate it, man. Feel like I've had this conversation a million
go ahead,
times.
Jim. Yeah. I do have one more question.
Yeah.
There was it just for, I know you said like it was a tough first year. You didn't look back, but it was a tough first year. You were really grinding. There's like the woohoo of Discovery Day and the signing and everything and the excitement there. 6 months in, what did that look like? Just didn't.
Yeah, man, it's funny because I remember it's like that first year is without a doubt a challenge, right? Because you come in, you're fired up, you're excited, and then the reality of life sets in, right? It's like, okay, putting up business, I'm writing it, but it takes time for that stuff to get paid on. So all of a sudden you start looking at your commission checks. And I had this conversation literally about an hour ago with one of the guys in the office here, and it's challenging. It's hard. That first year is difficult. So when you come in, you got to plan accordingly. You got to have a little bit of reserve. You got to be willing to take that risk. But I tell you what, man, once you get past that 6 month mark, I felt, I think my ramp up was maybe a little bit faster, but I think for the average, maybe 6-7 months, things start kind of turning the corner a little bit. And it's always going to be a challenge, and it's always going to be, man, I wish I did a little bit more, but it's been a great experience because it really humbled me, right? And brought me down to where it's like the very beginning of getting down and dirty again and just working hard, going back to good work ethics, staying focused, staying positive, surrounding myself with like-minded people. And that all drove success. And it took time, but my first year was a challenge, man. But I tell you, once you get past that 12th month, man, and then all of a sudden renewals start coming, and then you're adding on to it, and then all of a sudden you're in year 2, 3, things are looking better and better.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, man, if you want to come into this business and you're not willing to work hard, don't come in. You've got to work hard. Jamie said it once. I was on a Discovery Day with her, and she's an agent in Michigan, and she basically said that, if you're afraid to do this, or if you're afraid to work hard, put in long hours, long days for the first, 12 to 18 months, you're in the wrong place. Don't come in. And it's true. If you're not willing to make that leap of faith and work your ass off, this probably isn't a good fit for you. It takes a little time.
It does. I've communicated the same thing, and that goes back to it doesn't matter what sign's above you. If you don't work it, I know a ton of successful State Farm agents and Goosehead agents, and we also probably know equally amount that aren't doing well, so it's, I think that's one of the things I admire about Joe and hearing his story when we first met him is he comes in at 50 with, starting a brand new agency, and we keep an eye on the leaderboards, and he's always up there just crushing it, and it's nice there was many a times where me and Blake were getting into hiring, and we're like, well, damn, Joe hasn't hired out there, and he's been in it longer than us, so maybe we should be patient, You know
what I think it boils down to is consistency, right? I think if you stay consistent in your agency, and I tell people this all the time in my market, it's like, it doesn't matter if you're number 1 on the leaderboard or number 5 on the leaderboard or down number 10. If you're consistent and kind of going above that every single month, you're doing great.
You're there.
You don't have to be the top dog in your market, or you don't have to be the top dog in your state. Be consistent, and be consistent as hell. Do the same thing you did the same last month, and then try to improve every single month from it.
100%. Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of consistency. With us bringing Jake on board, he's like, all right, I did X amount. I'm like, okay, now let's do it for 12 months.
Rinse, repeat.
So, Hawkins, anything Anything else on your mind?
No, I'm good. This was great.
Joe's a good
Joe, I
dude.
really appreciate it.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff, guys. I can't wait. We'll roll it out, man, and we'll definitely hit you up. But I appreciate it, Joe. Thanks for everything. Thanks for always.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's nice seeing you guys. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. All right, fellas. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care. Cheers.